Welcome to Cinema 5D on the Go. Moving conversations about moving images with filmmakers and industry leaders. Brought to you by Hedge for Mac, Rode Microphones, G Technology, and Zachtle, in association with Ford. This is your host, Nino Leitner.
Welcome to another episode of Cinema 5D on the Go, this time with Janne Amunét from Finland.
Yes.
You're a filmmaker based out of Helsinki.
Yes.
And we ran into you here in Cologne at the Olympus booth. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a filmmaker, as you said. I'm based out of Helsinki, Finland. I dabble mostly in the commercial industry, so lots of TV and web spots. But I've also started to transfer into more feature and narrative work, with also doing documentaries for TV and cinema.
Cool. And how long have you been a filmmaker, or have you started before the DSLR resolution?
I did. I mean, we started out on some really old Canons. I've always dabbled in image making. Let's put it that way. So I've always been a photographer of some sort and doing stuff. But it really kicked off for me after the Canon 5D Mark II. So that was the kind of big kickoff. We did a bunch of films. Actually, I work mostly with my brother, Janne Amunét. He's the director and the cinematographer, and we kind of.
That's convenient.
It's interesting. Usually brothers hate each other, but for us, it's a really good workflow. So we've always kind of made something. We won a bunch of awards for some home videos back in the day, but it really kicked off when I went to a Canon event actually, and I was a student. And I was like, oh, there's free food, and I went there and they shot the Canon 5D Mark II, and I said, oh, video. And I said if I can get one of the first ones at the shop that came to Finland. One day later, never really shot video, doing a bunch of silly things, and 1 week later from that, it went on MTV.
Oh wow!
For the first time. So I am pretty confident that I have the first 5D Mark II video on MTV in Europe,
or in
TV in Europe.
Yeah, I think for all of us, I mean, these cameras changed a lot of things.
And, it did.
For me, I started a little bit later with it, but it was the 550D, and got my hands on it early through a friend, and then did a little video, and it got hundreds of thousands of views online. I was like, okay,
that's crazy.
Everybody wants this camera because it's this was was cheaper as well and stuff. So changed a lot of things.
It did.
And before that, you were a photographer, or?
Before that, I was mainly a photographer. I dabbled in video every now and then, but it was more on the producing and the directing side.
Yeah.
So I wasn't actually a cinematographer, basically, until the DSLR revolution started. I'd always kind of been there, but it was never a huge thing for me. I was actually, when the 5D Mark II came out, I was mostly a wedding photographer. So I started out in rock and music documentary, portrait shots. Did a lot of artists. Then I started doing weddings. Like, hey, this is cool. I get to travel a lot. I won a bunch of awards. I'm like, okay, this is kind of boring now. Let's do something else. And then actually pretty quickly graduated into, okay, this video stuff is really fun. I enjoy it. Ended up kind of selling all of my photo gear and took a huge risk to go do my first feature film like 2 years after the 5D Mark II came out.
Just as a free project, or like?
I got paid tickets, but it was an interesting project because it was a film done in China.
Oh wow!
So I got pulled. There was a friend of mine works there as a director and producer, and they had some actually pretty good American DP who was supposed to come there. He got called on to a bigger project because it was an indie flick. So like, okay, I get paid 10 times more. So so I can't do this. And he was like, hey, the team doesn't know you. Nobody really knows what you do. But if you send me your reel and if they like you enough, I can pull you on.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So I went from.
That's a rare chance.
That's a rare chance. That's a very rare chance. Of course, it was 28 days of pure pain with 2 days in between. I mean. I injured myself 3 times during the shoot. It was just this crazy shoot. But
what was the film about?
The film was And
when was that?
When would that have been? I'd say that was 5 years.
Okay.
5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that would have been five or.
So
five
not so long after the 5D came out.
Yeah, not so long. Yeah. So I'd mostly been working with that, and and some of the Panasonic camcorders, which were actually really good. The AF series.
101?
Yeah, 101. Yeah. So
the first professional attempt by any manufacturer to make an affordable, larger sensor camcorder.
And it worked for us. I mean, we did a bunch of projects on that. But the funny thing is, I graduated from the 5D Mark II and Panasonic, never having used bigger cinema cameras, straight to the Red 1, which is like the hardest possible camera as you go shoot for the first time.
Well, it's also not very handy.
It's not handy, and it was let's say 80% handheld.
Yeah. Ooh.
And so the film was actually a comedy, near feature sci-fi comedy, with a kind of like an adventure twist to it.
In Chinese?
In Chinese.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So,
so you didn't understand a word?
Yeah, I didn't. Luckily, my friend he's Chinese American, so he's fully able to translate everything. The script was already written in English as well, so
okay.
It's easy for me to.
So you knew what we
were
shooting.
We knew what we were doing. But jumping into a world of Red 1 and I got crews, I got people. I need to everything that needs to happen. It was a big step, but I mean we pulled the film through. It did go into places so people could actually see it, and it kicked off my friend's career. He's now doing multi-million projects in China. Big ones. He's been working with Keanu Reeves on his projects.
Oh wow! Okay.
So and luckily we're talking.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing when we're talking now for another project for me to come DP on.
Nice.
That I'm excited about.
Did you do any feature projects after that?
I did one. So I did one indie film in Finland, and now there's another one in pre-production. That hopefully will go into production in 2017. But after that, it was kind of weird because. You're in China and you do this Chinese film, which is still pretty big. It wasn't a big budget, but there was a crew of 80 people, which is still a fairly big crew. So it's jumping from that back into this kind of guerrilla filmmaking thing was a thing.
So you're kind of transitioning back and forth between a lot of commercial work and some of the feature work? Yeah,
it's still a lot of transitioning. My passion is in the narrative side of things, and I know my strengths are there as well.
Yeah.
I see myself as a better narrative filmmaker, but I consider my commercial work as a chance to every single job has something that you can take and improve yourself as a cinematographer or a storyteller.
That's what I keep saying. I mean, people who are starting out are like, should I take this and that job? I took everything in the beginning. I mean, literally, if it is the dullest job, I think you can learn everything. That's one of the advantages, in my opinion, as a director of photography or camera operator or cameraman, or whatever you call it, and whatever the job really is, you can work a lot. Where a director really has a hard time finding regular work, right?
It is.
So you can craft your skill on a regular basis much more easily as a shooter, if you are willing to do different things.
And it takes. I mean, basically what I did early on in my career when I started filmmaking, I would try to limit myself to a point where I learn something and then add on. It was the same thing I did with my photography. I said, okay, I need to learn to light, and I'd bought all these flashes. I'm like, I'm gonna have 8 flashes and everything. I realized that my pictures are really messy and it's just really technical. Something like, okay, 1 light, and then started adding 1 modifier, and then started adding another modifier, and then 2 lights, and I would do that for 1 month each at every time. And I did the same thing with my filmmaking, which I started out with lenses, and I had 8 lenses. I said, for 1 month, I'm only going to shoot on this 1 lens at a time. And that taught me...
That's good,
that was really good, because that taught me how to appreciate each lens and each focal length.
And you learn actually how to differentiate focal length. I think once I really got into using... I mean, I really started with kind of EB cameras because I started before DSLRs, and you have this massive zoom lens on, which kind of makes you lazy as well.
Yeah, it does.
And it makes your image creation lazy. And really only when the DSLRs came along and suddenly... I was also working for a photographer before you kind of get the hang of it, you know. That's pretty good. What kind of gear, what kind of cameras and lenses are you working with mostly these days?
Well, I usually rent according to what I need. But I feel that I'm not married to anything, that I always want to use the same thing. Of course, there are certain lenses and certain things that kind of give me a certain look that I always try to go for. But I use anything from the Olympus on a lot of documentary projects to the Amira and the Alex and the Epic and the big epics, and everything in between that changes according to the story, because everything in the end needs to serve the story. So if I know that we want this warmer, this more like simple color palette kind of things, I know I'm gonna go for Ari and Cook.
Yeah.
And it's.
But that's good. I mean, you adjust to the needs.
Just the needs. My director, whether it's my brother or if it's someone else, there's a certain story in there, and everything in my choices of gear and everything has to serve that story.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, then you're just trying to push your own agenda onto something instead of serving the bigger purpose, which is getting the story or the message across.
Yeah. Well, also there's a tendency. I mean, it's always a fine balance of what gear you should own and which one you should rent.
Yeah.
For me, it's really, having a basic good camera to be able to react is important. A lot of the stuff that I do is like also 1 or 2 day stuff, and there are a few cameras that are just, for me it's the FS7 for a lot of the work that I do, where I'm like, okay, this camera is the price cost ratio is right, and a lot of broadcasters demand it. It's exactly what the C300 used to be, really. So, but it's once you go higher end, it's just hard to invest into something or justify the expense when you really should adapt to the needs of the shoot.
I mean, we went from owning an Epic to selling it.
Oh yeah.
So we had an Mysterium X for 3 years, but we ended up selling it because we found that it started limiting us in a sense that we always needed to push our own lenses and our own camera into every shoot, even though if something else would have fit better.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, we own kind of a small package. We have some Blackmagic gear. The 4.6K we had for a while. We had actually Blackmagic gave it to us for testing it out. And that was a good camera.
So you were one of the lucky ones.
I was one of the lucky ones.
We were trying to get this camera for a long time, and finally now we can test it, and we have one, and we actually like it quite a lot. But we weren't lucky in the beginning.
Yeah. No, the lucky thing for us is that we were heading towards shooting that feature last spring.
Yeah.
And then I noticed, okay, Blackmagic's coming out with this, and it's really interesting. It looked like it could have the kind of look and thing that we'd want for the film.
Yeah.
So we said to Blackmagic, I'm gonna shoot myself in the leg and try to shoot this film on a beta camera. Will you give us one? And they did give us one day and provided us for the whole film, and we were able to film it on that. And it was a really good experience. I think they're really onto something with it.
Yeah.
It has its downfalls. The magenta problems are something that they really need to fix.
I agree, but for me, this is also the first camera that they made that is really it hits a sweet spot.
It does.
Like the form factor and everything. It's quite nice.
I think it's the perfect sweet spot. I mean, on this film it was about 80% gimbal, and it's basically the maximum size we can fit on our. I mostly use the Beast Steady or the ACR systems. The Beast. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're actually a fantastic company. We told them this film is coming up, and like, can you do some of these changes and help us with the power possibilities and everything? They were able to modify our gimbal really fast and ship it to us in a few days. So I do have to say that they're a great company to work with. But yeah, I mean, the Blackmagic, it's pretty much the max size of something you can fit on a gimbal. Yeah. But it's also big enough to feel good on your shoulder.
It's funny that it's called the Mini. It should be called Ursa Normal.
Ursa Normal, and then there's the Ursa Ginormous.
Ginormous.
Yeah.
That is really, really ginormous.
It is really ginormous. It took me straight back to my Red 1 days, and I don't miss those days.
But how? I mean, we met you yesterday here because we saw this amazing new camera from Olympus, which. Olympus came out of nowhere recently with this camera.
Yeah,
and
they did.
Somebody calling me, that's not possible. So Olympus came out of nowhere with this camera, and yeah, it's really good. And nobody expected Olympus to, just hit the sweet spot with the first foray into 4K filmmaking.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about it and how you ended up using it?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I didn't think they would hit that sweet spot so fast either. I mean, Olympus originally contacted me, and we started working with them on some of my photography projects. So I use that a lot. It's my personal camera. I did a bunch of stuff for them that was actually really successful. But then they were like, okay, we had the E-M1 Mark II coming out. They come from Japan with this super big NDAs for like $500,000, don't say anything, and it's like, and what's this? It's like, okay, so it does video. Oh, stabilization. Oh shit. It got really interesting super fast. So I've been working with Olympus for 2 years now. I've had the chance to kind of experience the company. It's an interesting company because they have honestly no background in video. Unlike Panasonic, unlike all of the other guys, they have one foot in the video business.
Yeah, that's why I'm so surprised they got it right, because Nikon, for example, they've kind of been trying for years.
For years, yeah.
I mean, while they have some good video features, most of their cameras have really massive downfalls for video.
Yeah.
But Olympus just, got it right. It looks like it. I mean,
I do think they got it right.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is they listen to feedback. It's like, unlike a lot of other big companies, they're like, no, but we need to push this. It's on our agenda. It's on our pipeline and timeline, and this needs to go. They're like, oh, they listen to people. They like stuff that we had from E-M1 Mark II. Then we're saying like, if you can do this, it's great. Better color fidelity. We need this and this and this. And as long as there were enough people saying the same thing and enough regions backing that, they're a company that takes it forward. But it's really weird that they put out the first 4K camera, and I think it's one of I would consider right now the best run and gun camera in the world. Yeah, I would say that.
Wow.
For someone who needs to be discreet, low profile, travel fast, grab shots quickly, I think it is one of the most interesting platforms out in the market right now.
That's interesting. I mean, one of the most amazing things that I saw is the stabilizer that it has built in.
That's the changer. Yeah.
That's you can like shake the camera and it still stays steady. So I mean, this is not like a normal stabilizer that only gets rid of micro vibrations. It almost looks like a gimbal.
No, because it almost functions as a gimbal. I mean, the big thing is when the Sony came out with the first stabilization, we put it on a bracket with the E-M1 Mark II, and we run a bunch of different scenarios with it, and it just couldn't keep up. I think it has one of the reasons is the sensor size, because the sensor is so much smaller. It can move so much faster and so much more agility.
It has more wiggle room.
Yeah,
I guess.
It's more wiggle room. Yeah, you could say. And the other thing is that
it's a Micro Four Thirds.
The Micro Four Thirds, Micro Four Thirds sensor. And one thing that Olympus does well is that the movement feels organic.
Yeah.
So if it's like I can't do that, then it lets it go, and it just feels like it's an extended. How would I say it? It's like it basically steadies your arm, but it lets you move. It's the same reason why I really like the B-Steady system. When you move, it lets you move, and it does it organically, so it doesn't feel very robotic.
Yeah.
And that's something they do very well. But I think honestly the stabilization that's coming into these cameras is one of the best things that will happen to people who need to, one-man gun or run fast with the camera, pick up shots really quickly. Because the thing is that I've run some really interesting scenarios. We put their 40 to 150 mm lens on that, handheld, just like that, standing. It's a tripod shot.
Oh wow!
So that's like, something that tripod shot. I can pan down. I can side pan, and it's say 90% of a tripod shot you'd get on a long lens. It's like once you start practicing with this camera, you start practicing some moves, you can really pull off some crazy things.
That's one of the mistakes that a lot of people make with gimbals, because they can move it. They would move the camera all the time, and it's just annoying. You should just stop as well.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was good. I actually had the chance to do a workshop on camera movements. That's what and one of the first things I said is like, it's always the first thing you need to ask, like, do I need to let the image move or do I let the camera move?
Yeah.
Like it always comes back to what serves the story. If I push this forward, if I pan around, does it somehow create more emotional impact to what is going on in the scene? Everything, every decision from your lens to your camera movements.
Yeah, just be motivated.
Motivated by the story. Yeah.
Cool.